Chapter 33, Part 5. Uneasy Collaboration. The air in the heart chamber of the Watcher was thick with the weight of ages, cool, damp, and carrying a faint metallic tang that seemed to vibrate against the teeth. 8 colossal crystals dominated the immense cavern, fused seamlessly with the living rock of the mountain, cradled by stalactites and stalagmites that reached like praying hands from the floor and ceiling. Each monolith pulsed with a distinct internal light, painting the cavern walls in shifting hues: fiery red, brilliant yellow, deep sapphire blue, vibrant orange, verdant green, royal purple, stark, pure white, and an abyssal, light-absorbing black. The sheer scale was humbling, the silence profound, broken only by the distant drip of unseen water and the soft shuffle of the assembled group. Lucas stood near the center, gaze fixed not on the awe-inspiring spectacle, but on the figure setting up equipment nearby. Dr. Elias Thorne. The name alone sent a jolt of revulsion through him, a cold echo of violation and pain from the Medi laboratory. Clenching his fists, knuckles white, Lucas forced his breathing to remain even. He could feel Mina's quiet presence nearby, a steady warmth in the back of his mind, but his focus narrowed, consumed by the immediate, galling necessity of the situation. Answers, he reminded himself, the word a harsh rasp in his thoughts. This place holds answers, and Thorne might be the key. The thought was bile in his throat. Not a person, not a scientist, but a tool. A contaminated, dangerous tool, but potentially the only one capable of interfacing with whatever arcane science governed this sanctuary. Thorne, seemingly oblivious or perhaps indifferent to the palpable animosity radiating from Lucas, moved with brisk, clinical efficiency. Beside him rested a compact, ruggedized pod-like vehicle, more akin to a mobile laboratory workstation than transport. Panels were open, revealing an array of sophisticated sensors, coiled cables, and articulated manipulator arms. Kale, Thorne's mercenary shadow, stood impassively a few steps away, his eyes, like his employer's, scanning the group with detached assessment. Elara, the historian, observed the crystals with academic reverence, her notebook already filling with sketches and observations. "Remarkable," Thorne murmured, adjusting a dial on a handheld scanner linked to the pod. The device emitted a low hum, its sensors sweeping across the nearest crystals. The ambient arcane field strength is staggering, yet remarkably stable for now. He glanced towards Lucas, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Calculation? Superiority? As I suspected, the energy signatures correspond directly to the chromatic spectrum of the crystals. Each color resonates at a distinct arcane frequency. Red, the lowest vibrational intensity currently measurable, black likely absorbing or nullifying certain wavelengths, while white possibly reflects or amplifies across the spectrum. He gestured towards the pod. My equipment is designed specifically for this, mapping multi-layered arcane fields, analyzing resonance patterns, identifying structural and energetic anomalies. Standard geological surveys would be useless here. He tapped a screen displaying fluctuating graphs and complex waveforms. We need to understand the baseline energetic output of each crystal, their interplay, and identify any deviations. Lucas bit back a retort. Thorne's explanation, though potentially vital, grated on him, sounding condescendingly simplistic despite the complex terminology. He forced himself to nod curtly. Fine. Where do we start? Systematically, Thorne replied, activating a small drone that detached from the pod and hovered upwards, its own sensors glowing faintly. We'll perform initial scans on all 8, establish baseline readings, then closer analysis. The process began. Thorne directed the drone and ground sensors, calling out readings in clipped technical jargon. Lucas watched, not just Thorne, but the crystals themselves. He let his own senses reach out, bypassing the technological interface Thorne relied upon. He felt the immense ancient power radiating from the 6 colored crystals: red, yellow, blue, orange, green, purple. They felt organic, deeply rooted, humming with a power that felt intrinsically part of the mountain's soul, ancient and slow like geological time. He focused, letting his gaze drift over the smooth, light-drinking surface of the black crystal, then shifted to the stark brilliance of the white crystal nearby. There was power there, undeniably, strong and resonant, yet something felt different. Was it the way they were seated in the rock? The other 6 seemed grown from the stone, fused over millennia. These 2, while seamlessly integrated, had a subtle sharpness to their juncture with the surrounding formations, a hint of something applied. He pushed the thought aside. Speculation without data was useless, especially with Thorne involved. He needed facts, proof, something concrete to counter the man's assured pronouncements. He could feel Mina's unspoken question brush against his mind, a soft inquiry about his state. He pushed back a wave of reassurance, though the effort felt thin. Focus, he told himself. Just focus. Nearby, Afarosia stood with regal stillness, her silver eyes narrowed in concentration, her fingers occasionally tracing unseen patterns in the air, as if testing the very currents of magic flowing through the chamber. Altheris maintained his position near the queen, ever vigilant, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his sword, his gaze periodically flicking towards Thorne and Kale. Vermicalis, the Nethari guardian, stood apart, arms crossed, his expression a stony mask of disapproval. This probing, this dissection of the sacred heart of the Watcher with cold instruments, was clearly a violation in his eyes, tolerated only through the Queen's authority and the shared urgency of their quest. Thomas remained close to Lucas, a silent, grounding presence, his readiness to intervene if Thorne crossed a line unspoken but absolute. Candace and Dyra watched with wide eyes, caught between the scientific process and the overwhelming mystical atmosphere. Interesting, Thorne muttered, frowning at a reading from the sensor array focused on the white crystal. A slight harmonic dissonance here, an echo, almost, not correlating precisely with the expected frequency based on the visible light spectrum alone. He made a notation on his datapad. And the black crystal, energy absorption is nearly total across the scanned frequencies, yet there's a residual thermal signature inconsistent with pure absorption, almost like shielded containment. Lucas's attention sharpened. Dissonance? Containment? Thorne's technical terms resonated with his own intuitive feeling of difference. He stepped closer, ignoring the instinct to keep his distance from the man, his eyes tracing the base of the black crystal where it met the cavern floor. The fusion point looked subtly different, less like ancient rock flowing into crystal, more like precision work, cleverly disguised. "We need closer scans of those two," Lucas stated, his voice tight. Thorne looked up, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk touching his lips before vanishing. "My thought exactly, Lucas. It appears our initial survey suggests the primary points of interest might be the spectral outliers, the achromatic pillars." The uneasy collaboration had begun. Two opposing forces, bound by necessity, turning their attention towards the silent, stoic black and white giants, unaware they stood on the precipice of uncovering a secret buried deeper than stone, older than memory. The air crackled, not just with arcane energy, but with suspicion and the heavy weight of impending discovery. The low hum of Thorne's equipment intensified as he directed the drone and ground sensors to focus solely on the stark white and absolute black crystal monoliths. Lucas stood nearby, arms crossed, his earlier revulsion momentarily overshadowed by intense curiosity. He could feel the difference in these two pillars, a subtle yet distinct lack of the deep geological resonance that pulsed from the 6 colored crystals. It was like comparing a living tree to expertly crafted wood, similar in form, but fundamentally different in essence. Thorne tapped rapidly on his datapad, multi-layered holographic displays flickering before him. "Energy signatures confirmed anomalous," he stated, his voice clipped with scientific focus. "The resonant frequencies of the white and black structures deviate significantly from the baseline established by the chromatic set. They operate on a different energetic principle entirely." He magnified a waveform display. "See here? The natural crystals exhibit slow, deep energy cycles, like breathing. These two," he pointed to a more erratic, higher frequency pattern, "their energy feels engineered, contained, almost like sophisticated power regulators rather than passive conduits." Elara, the historian, had moved closer, her eyes scanning the bases where the black and white crystals met the cavern floor. "The integration points," she murmured, pointing. "Look, the fusion with the stalagmites and stalactites is flawless, almost too perfect compared to the organic intermingling of the others. It suggests later addition, masterful work, but not natural growth." Lucas nodded slowly, stepping forward to examine the base of the black crystal himself. Elara was right. The join was seamless, yet lacked the subtle imperfections, the millennia of geological stress evident where the colored crystals emerged from the rock. These two felt placed. They weren't grown, Lucas stated, confirming his earlier intuition. They were built, added after the others. Thorne gave a short, sharp nod, already several steps ahead in his analysis. Precisely. Artificial constructs designed to mimic the natural formation, but serving a different purpose. The black absorbs ambient arcane energy with near-perfect efficiency, except for a narrow band it seems to channel internally. The white, it reflects almost everything, yet exhibits a focused internal resonance, as if designed to amplify or redirect specific frequencies. He frowned, tapping another command into his pad. Absorption and reflection, containment and amplification. It's a binary system. Queen Apharosia, who had been observing with quiet intensity, spoke for the first time since they began the focused examination. A lock, she suggested, her voice soft but carrying weight. A mechanism requiring balance. Thorne looked up, a flicker of respect in his eyes. An astute observation, Your Majesty. If they are artificial, they likely serve a purpose beyond simple energy regulation. Perhaps a key. His gaze swept across the cavern. But a key to what? Mina, ever observant, pointed towards the faceted surfaces of the white crystal. Some of these facets, they catch the light differently, almost like lenses. Lucas followed her gaze. She was right. Certain planes on the white crystal seemed deliberately angled, catching the ambient glow from the other crystals and the faint torchlight in a way that suggested more than natural formation. He then looked at the black crystal. Its surface devoured light, yet one specific, almost invisible seam near its apex seemed faintly different, less absolute in its darkness. It's a puzzle, Lucas breathed, the pieces clicking into place. A lock and key, but using energy and light. Thorne was already manipulating controls on his pod, deploying smaller, precision sensor drones. We need to map the light paths. If the white crystal is designed to reflect or focus, and the black to absorb or channel, he directed one drone to emit a low-intensity beam of pure white light towards the white crystal. The beam struck a specific facet, refracted instantly, and shot across the cavern, striking another crystal. But it wasn't a chaotic reflection. It was precise. Thorne adjusted the angle of the emitter drone. The reflected beam shifted, hitting a different point. It's directional, Thorne muttered, excitement entering his voice. The facets are angled to redirect incoming energy towards specific points. He turned his attention to the black crystal. And this one, perhaps it absorbs all but the correct input frequency or angle, then channels it. He instructed another drone to project a beam at the black crystal. As expected, the light vanished into its surface. Thorne adjusted the frequency, the angle, cycling through possibilities. Minutes passed, the only sound the soft hum of the drones and the occasional tap of Thorne's stylus. Lucas watched, but his mind was working differently. He wasn't thinking about frequencies or angles in a technical sense. He was feeling the energy, the flow within the cavern. The 6 colored crystals pulsed with a natural rhythm, but the black and white pair felt intentional, like circuits waiting for the right input. He closed his eyes, extending his telekinetic sense, not to move anything, but to feel the subtle pressures, the invisible currents flowing between the monoliths. He sensed it, a faint pathway, an energetic resonance linking the black and white crystals not directly, but through a point somewhere else in the cavern. A point on the far wall. Thorne, Lucas said, opening his eyes, aim the white crystal's reflection towards the west wall, about halfway up near that large fissure. Thorne paused, glancing at Lucas with skepticism. Based on what? Your intuition? Based on the energy flow, Lucas countered coolly. Just try it. Thorne hesitated, then shrugged, inputting the coordinates. The emitter drone shifted. The beam from it struck the white crystal, and the reflected light shot across the cavern, illuminating a specific section of the western wall. It was a point that looked no different from the surrounding rock, unremarkable and plain. Nothing, Thorne stated flatly. Now the black one, Lucas pressed. It doesn't absorb everything. There's a specific harmonic needed. Try focusing a resonant arcane pulse, tuned to. Lucas trailed off, concentrating, feeling for the subtle frequency to match the blue crystal's primary output. Thorne looked intrigued despite himself. Matching the blue frequency, unconventional, but he typed rapidly. The second drone shifted, emitting not light, but a focused pulse of arcane energy at the black crystal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the almost invisible seam Lucas had noticed earlier on the black crystal glowed faintly. A thin, near-invisible beam of focused energy, dark purple rather than black, lanced out from it, converging precisely on the same spot on the western wall where the white crystal's light was focused. Where the two beams met, the rock began to shimmer. Faint lines, previously invisible, etched themselves onto the surface, glowing with the combined energy. They formed an intricate pattern, outlining a shape within the stone, a section of the wall subtly different from the rest. A collective intake of breath came from the group. Elara gasped, scribbling frantically in her notebook. Vermiculus grunted, his suspicion replaced by wary respect. Thomas shifted his weight, his eyes fixed on the glowing outline. "A hidden mechanism," Apharosia murmured, her voice filled with quiet awe. Lucas and Thorne locked eyes for a fleeting moment, a shared spark of discovery cutting through their animosity. They had solved it. The artificial veil had been lifted, revealing not just a clever puzzle, but the entrance to something concealed, something ancient. Something the mountain had kept secret for millennia. The converged light pulsed steadily on the wall, bathing the outline of the hidden doorway in an ethereal glow, beckoning them towards the next layer of the mystery. The stone groaned, a deep, protesting sound that resonated through the cavern as the final section of the hidden wall crumbled inward. Dust billowed, thick and choking, momentarily obscuring the newly revealed opening. The combined light and arcane energy beams focused by the black and white crystals flickered, then extinguished, plunging the breached section back into shadow, illuminated only by the ambient glow of the 6 colored crystals and the party's own lanterns. A gust of cold, impossibly still air rushed out from the opening, carrying the scent of deep earth, absolute stillness, and something else, something ancient and undisturbed. For a moment, no one moved. The sudden success felt jarring after the buildup of tension and the perceived danger Thorne had warned of. "Well," Thomas muttered, breaking the silence as he lowered his shield slightly, "that was easier than expected." Candace nodded slowly, her amber eyes narrowed as she peered into the darkness beyond the breach. "Too easy," she agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. "After everything Thorne said about instability, this feels wrong. Perhaps the mechanism was merely waiting," Queen Apharosia suggested, stepping forward with cautious grace. Her usual composure was intact, but Lucas sensed a flicker of profound curiosity beneath the surface, a stirring of knowledge confronted by the unknown. Elias Thorne himself looked momentarily perplexed, frowning at the inactive crystals and the clean breach. "The energy discharge was contained entirely within the mechanism," he observed, tapping readings into his datapad. "Remarkable efficiency. It wasn't a forced entry. It was an unlocking." Vermiculus pushed past them, his spear held ready, torch held high. "Enough talk. The ancestors await, or whatever lies within." He stepped through the ragged opening, the torchlight swallowed instantly by the profound darkness beyond. One by one, the party followed, stepping over crumbled stone and into the passage. The air immediately grew colder, the silence pressing in on them, heavy and absolute. The tunnel wasn't long, descending gently for perhaps 50 feet before opening into another chamber. This was no natural cavern. The walls were smooth, obsidian black stone, polished to a near-mirror finish, reflecting the torchlight in distorted, unsettling ways. The ceiling was impossibly high, lost in shadow, and the floor was paved with interlocking hexagonal tiles that seemed to absorb sound, muffling their footsteps. The air was utterly still, untouched by any draft, carrying only the faintest scent of dust and something indescribably old. And in the center, bathed in the soft, ambient light filtering from unseen sources above, stood 3 colossal sarcophagi. They were immense, easily twice the height of Thomas, carved from the same obsidian-like stone as the walls. Each rested upon a low dais, spaced evenly apart in a triangular formation. Their surfaces were unadorned, save for a single band of intricate script etched near the lid of each one, glowing faintly with a silvery light. Dira gasped, stumbling forward, her notebook falling unheeded from her trembling hands. Her eyes, wide with awe and disbelief, were fixed on the central sarcophagus. "It can't be," she whispered, her voice thick with reverence. "The tombs of the first, the legends spoke of them, hidden within the Watcher's heart. But I never thought." She dropped to her knees, tears welling in her eyes. "The Sent Ones," she breathed, bowing her head. "They rested here." The weight of her words hung in the chamber, the resting place of the original Sent Ones, hidden for millennia. Lucas felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. He looked at the sarcophagi, his gaze drawn to the glowing script. It was elvish, but archaic, different from the script Apharosia used. Queen Apharosia stepped forward, her expression solemn, her eyes tracing the ancient letters. She read the inscription on the sarcophagus as nearest to Lucas aloud, her voice barely a whisper but echoing in the profound silence. "Lucianae." She moved to the next, her breath catching slightly. "Minalia." Finally, she stood before the third, her gaze lingering on the glowing script before she read the final name. "Tamar." The name struck the group like a physical blow. Lucas, Mina, Thomas. Their names, or ancient variations thereof, etched onto sarcophagi millennia old. Lucas staggered back a step, his mind reeling. Mina reached out, gripping his arm, her own face pale with shock. Thomas stood frozen, his usual stoicism shattered, his eyes fixed on the sarcophagus bearing his ancient counterpart's name. This is impossible," Thomas choked out, the words rough. "How can our names—" Before anyone could offer an explanation, something shifted. A low hum filled the air, subtle at first, then growing stronger. Lucas felt it resonate through the relic bound to his wrist. He looked down. The obsidian band, usually dormant, was pulsing with a soft, steady light, mirroring the rhythm of his own frantic heartbeat. Beside him, Mina gasped. "Lucas, look!" Her relic, the silvery band around her ankle, was doing the same, emitting a gentle, rhythmic glow. The two relics pulsed in sync, their light growing brighter, casting shifting patterns on the obsidian floor. Thomas looked down at his own relic, the piston-like gauntlet. It remained inert, unchanged, its energy signature quiet, almost pointedly so. The hum intensified, focused now around Lucas and Mina. They felt a pull, an undeniable connection drawing them closer to the sarcophagi bearing their ancient names. Hesitantly, they stepped forward, the pulsing light from their relics illuminating the ancient stone. Lucas reached out, his fingers trembling as they hovered just above the sarcophagus marked Lucianae. The moment his hand drew near, the relic on his wrist flared, the light almost blinding. And then the whisper returned to his mind. Not the calculating voice of Thomas's relic, nor the chaotic static from Ceylon's presence, but the dormant, alien consciousness within his own artifact, stirring sluggishly, responding to the proximity of the tomb. Owner, the thought was fragmented, weak, but unmistakable. Owner, near. Lucas inhaled sharply, pulling his hand back as if burned. He locked eyes with Mina, whose face reflected his own mixture of terror and staggering revelation. She had heard it too, through their bond, through her own relic. Owner near. The words echoed in the silent crypt, a profound, terrifying mystery. Did the relics recognize the sarcophagi as their original owners? Or did they recognize Lucas and Mina themselves, finally acknowledging their connection despite the DNA mismatch? Were they the owners, reincarnated, destined to reclaim these ancient vessels? Or was someone else nearby, the true owner the relics had sensed from afar, now closer than ever? The discovery hung in the air, heavy and absolute. 3 ancient tombs marked with their names. 2 relics, pulsing with newfound energy, whispering of an owner nearby. The silent, watchful presence of the crypt seemed to press in on them, the weight of millennia converging on this single, impossible moment. The secrets of the temple, the prophecy, their own identities, they were all tangled together, buried deep within this mountain's heart. They had sought answers, but what they found was a mystery far deeper, far more personal, and infinitely more dangerous than they could have ever imagined.